We are back for another episode of All 32. Mike Giardi, Will Parkinson alongside. Week 3 almost in the books, although we do have the double dip on Monday Night Football because, they need to put 2 games on Monday Night Football as opposed to 1. Not really quite sure why we do that, but they are, Will. Interesting week as always. And we'll start, of course, with Patriots and Jets.
Yeah, it was it was an interesting week. We're really in the thick of things now. I think the preseason nature of weeks 1 and 2, the craziness maybe we saw last week, not so much this week, but yeah, we started it off with Jets Pats, and I thought overall that game, I think was people thought might have been closer than because of the way the Pats started the season, the way the Jets obviously potentially started as well. Rodgers had looked solid, but not elite by any means. The Jets defense had not played fully up to kind of what we expected. The Patriots kind of overachieving a little bit on it. It felt like they were like, wow, they're really well coached and they look pretty solid and they're not beating themselves, etc. And a lot of injuries on both sides of the football for both teams. But if you told me that game ended 40-0, I think I would have probably actually, if you just watched the film, didn't know the score, you probably would have assumed that's what happened. It was an ass kicking. And it's something we have not really seen in this rivalry, quote unquote, from the Jets perspective to the Patriots, especially at home in quite some time. So it was a lot. If you're a Patriots fan, you were not leaving that game happy. And if you're a Jets fan, you were ecstatic. All the last 4 days you've been throwing a party.
Yeah, I have noticed some of the Jet fans in my life celebrating quite a bit. Big smiles on their face. A reminder, this show brought to you by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. In game time, best tickets, best prices to get you into any event that you want to see. Will and I use them both. Love them both. First of all, let's just say this. Aaron Rodgers, after not really looking like Aaron Rodgers for 2 games, which, look, made a lot of sense in the sense that he hadn't played in a year. We had 4 regular season snaps last year before he snaps the Achilles, but he hadn't completed a pass outside the tackle box in the first 2 games. And I'd say, about 6 of those happened in the first half of game 3. And look, some of that is poor discipline by the Patriots. I mean, this Rob Mayo told us we're taping this on Monday afternoon. I spoke to Mayo this morning and he was like, well, that was like the last reminder we gave the players before we went out on the field was like, make sure you keep Rodgers in the pocket. They did not do that. And then when he got outside the pocket, of course, he was getting out there, keeping his eyes downfield, looking to push the ball down the field, but was not afraid to take off and run. So that is should put a big smile on the faces of a lot of Jets people because that's the kind of thing that you brought him here for, to be able to create plays off schedule and do those sorts of things. Flip side, about as putrid a tackling game as I can remember the Patriots having, and for a team that prides itself on being tough and physical, this was the absolute opposite of that. They got their ass kicked, and fundamentally, simple things like wrapping and tackling could not do. Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, but Alan Lazard, Conklin, like how many missed tackles were there? The broadcast, the Next Gen Stats had 14 for 100 yards extra off of those missed tackles, Will. And would it have mattered? Probably not. Again, like you mentioned, it was a lopsided game pretty much from jump. But that's the kind of thing that when you're talent deficient like the Patriots are, if you're going to play like that on defense, you got no shot.
Yeah, look, a couple of things. Rodgers 5 of 5 for 62 yards outside the tackle box, throwing on the run, ran for 18 yards. The second play of the game, you kind of could tell what kind of game it's going to be. Rodgers moves around. I believe he ran for 2 or 3 yards. Didn't seem like anything crazy, but I talked a lot about this, and I've talked about this on my stuff, and we talked about this kind of going into the game that Rodgers, as camp kind of went along, he felt more and more confident in the Achilles, more and more confident in getting hit, thrown on the run. By the end of camp, you were like, part of the reason I had the Jets, I think what happened was the 2 seed, was because of what I saw at Aaron Rodgers, specifically the last 2 weeks of camp. And the first 2 weeks, I felt like he was accurate from the pocket. EPA per play wise was good. And, some of the efficiency, they're scoring touchdowns, but he kind of looks like a little skittish. I think it's safe to say. I think he didn't trust it at all. There was the one play, and I'm going to keep coming back to this if the Jets progressed nicely throughout the year. Late in the second or third quarter of the Titans game, Rodgers runs out. First time he had broken the pocket really at all. through the first 6-7 quarters. Jeffrey Simmons hits him on the sideline. Borderline, Mahomes may get the call, but other than that, no one really gets that call, right? And Rodgers kind of got up, and I'm like, it was fine, obviously. And I felt like he locked in and played much better the rest of that game. He came out free flowing, body's now in rhythm. Mike, you know this. When you're out for a long time, this is going to happen to Christian Barmore next year, and it's going to happen. It happened to Christian Gonzalez. It happens to anybody coming back from injury. It's physical, then it's mental, then it's like by week 2, 3, 4, you start to now your body's used to getting hit again, and you're kind of just locked in a different sense. Rodgers just for such a long time last year was coming back from the injury, a lot of off the field stuff in terms of talking about different things. I talked about this on the Six Ring, friend of the show, the guys from the Six Rings pod, and they said like Rodgers looks really locked in. I said this is the most locked in he's been as a Jet. He cut McAfee to 15 minutes last week. He cut his own availability down, and he was just like, nope, got to go win the football game. And it was like totally different Rodgers. That was locked in. Football is the number one priority, and literally nothing else matters. So he dissected them. I thought he played it maybe like a 7.5 out of 10 of like MVP level, but he was by far the best player in the field. And I thought this was kind of what we were all interested to see if Rodgers could get back to. And I felt like on the New England side of things, I felt like they got out coached really bad, in my opinion, at least. I thought the Jets' game plan was like, we're not letting Ramondre Stevenson beat us, and we're going to blitz Jacoby Brissett. The Jets never blitz, ever. And they were like, we're going to blitz. And the Patriots just never adjusted. There was no screens. There was no nothing. It was either drop back or like pound Ramondre off tackle one way or another. I believe until the last drive, I think they had like less than 100 total yards of offense. And I understand the injuries, and I'm not trying to beat up on the Patriots here. Unfortunately, the way the NFL works, like when you're not as talented and then the other team's playing really well and you're not, a short week, the tired, like everything, it was a perfect spiral. I was disappointed from the Patriots perspective that I felt like usually they're a really disciplined defense that tackles well. They're not going to beat themselves, and offensively just doing just enough to keep yourself in the game. And the Jets got up early, and it just felt like it was over. And it was kind of a snooze fest if you were a neutral fan watching that game.
Yeah, total bloodbath. You mentioned the plan. I did think they got absolutely outcoached. It was interesting to see the Jets sort of spread them out, and then it was up to Rodgers. Hey, what's the best matchup? And like, it's Xavier Gibson, who's by nobody's stretch of imagination a great player, but he's on Jabril Peppers, little tiny slot guy on Peppers. I'm going to take that matchup. Bam, first down. 12 yards, first down. Just those sorts of things throughout the course of the day. Every time he was able to do that, he found the weakness and he attacked it. And 9 out of 10 times they won that. And then from an offensive perspective, I hated the Patriots plan. You mentioned the screens. Alex Van Pelt told us back in the spring, repeated it this summer. I think he's probably said it at some point here during the start of the regular season. We want to be one of the best screen teams in the league. Again, well, then where were those screens? They were nowhere to be found. And the Jets had struggled to stop the run. And this is going back to last year. And some of that is game script. Obviously when you're playing Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian, you're in a hole and the other team's just going to turn around and run the ball, shorten the game. But in the first 2 games of this season, gave up huge chunks of yardage on the ground. What's the one thing the Patriots do well? They run the football. They came out and they tried to throw the ball. And I thought they telegraphed it all week. Oh, we've got to get explosives. We've got to push the ball down the field to our receivers who had already started to grumble, in particular Pop Douglas. Got to get the ball to Pop Douglas. Great. Wonderful. Pop Douglas got some touches. Awesome. Fantastic. What was the final score again? 24-3. What happened to your run game? Oh, you didn't commit to it in the beginning. You committed to the pass. 7 of the first 9 plays were pass plays. I think they sent such a weird message to their team. And again, I don't know that it would have made a difference because I think they just got outclassed physically. But hey, first 2 weeks, we won a game and we were leading in the game in the fourth quarter because we were able to control the clock and run the football. That's what we do. That is our identity as a football team. And in week 3, yes, the Jets made adjustments to try to take away that, but you sort of helped them by just not doing it in the beginning. And then you created a negative game script for yourself, which you cannot do with what you have on the offensive line, what you have at receiver, which again, a lot of unproven guys or guys that just, they're not what they think they are. They're not what people think they are. And it was a disaster from that standpoint. And so they've got 10 days, we're already into the week, but they had 10 days now to sort of get ready for San Francisco. And the plan's got to be a hell of a lot better than that, because that was an absolute debacle. At the end of that game, we saw Drake Maye, which I think was expected. Like, when there were going to be opportunities to get him into games, lopsided one way or the other, probably not going to be lopsided in your favor too often this year. But in this case, and Will, like, I'm glad he got the work, because, again, it's all about progress and getting the experiences. But nearly threw an interception on the first play, bailed out of the pocket on the second play, was not seeing it like he needs to see it. And yeah, there were a couple really nice plays. The play to pop was a nice play, a good chunk play that I don't know if Brissett makes that play. So you've got that sort of capability, but by and large, really uneven. And again, good for him to go back and look at and study. But the footwork stuff was already, and Van Pelt mentioned it on Friday when we talked to him in the conference call. Like, yeah, some of the things that we've been trying to coach out of him, they showed up, which, as you know, makes sense, because you can talk all you want about fixing mechanics, but when the thing gets real and guys are running to try to take your head off, what do? You revert to what you've done your whole career. Footwork, how you throw the ball, the entire thing. So there's a lot to clean up there. And I don't know what you felt about it, but to me, he's going to play at some point this year. He's going to be your starting quarterback. But I am pushing that as far into the future as I possibly can. I had thought week 5, and maybe they still think week 5. I don't think week 5. I think this team is not ready for him, and I don't think he's ready for it either. So if it's week 8, week 9, week 10, whatever it is, that's where I'd want to push this thing, not in the immediate here and now.
Yeah, well, I don't think this week's the week to do it. Jacoby's been taking a beating, and just one thing on the screen game, like the Jets have, the one thing they've not done a great job of this year is defending the screen game. Like at Tennessee, they didn't do a great job. They adjusted in the second half, but I felt like just keep them honest. The first pass Drake Maye threw, I talked to Michael Carter after the game about it, and he was like, I cannot believe I didn't catch that. Like, yeah. That was a pick six house call all day long, and it's fine. And maybe it would have been better if it honestly got picked off, just from the aspect of like, all right, dude, you threw an interception. Who cares?
Right.
You saw the reason why he's not playing, and it's because the offensive line right now is not sustainable. And again, it's a really good Jets defense, and they'll get a really good San Francisco defense, or pretty good. It's hard to know what San Francisco is week to week right now. But generally speaking, a really good defense. So like those probably aren't the spots, but he takes the huge hit from Sherwood. It was the interaction with Rodgers is cool after the game, especially if you're a Jets fan or a Packers fan or whatever. You like Rodgers. He's like, I'm waiting for the GOAT. And I'm sure that probably didn't go over well with Patriots fans, but
it did not.
Hey, man, listen, Rodgers is the most talented thrower of the football of all time, and it's okay if he likes Rodgers. Not everyone has to love Brady as much as he's obviously the actual GOAT, but I'm interested to see how they handle this with Maye, because if it's about getting people back healthy on the offensive line, hey, is that week 5, week 6, week 7? Is it we're circling this date? I think I mentioned week 8 or week 9 in our preview show, because I felt like if you get him 8 starts, that's a good enough sample size to have some idea of what you're going into next year. I'd like to see more than 8 starts, preferably, just because I feel like the quarterback play is so bad around the league. And I just think this works in the Patriots' advantage right now. Caleb's generational prospect, really bad offensive line, not such a good offensive coordinator, which is what I would describe the Patriots as. And people are already souring on Caleb. He's not good, etc. Anthony Richardson, elite offensive line, elite offensive coordinator, and looks horrible. So all these young quarterbacks, the quarterback play around the league's terrible right now. I don't know if it's ever been in a worse spot than it is like this week, going into this week. Like they just had the first 300-yard passer and 3 touchdown passer, and at the end of week 3, like that's not something we've experienced. So Drake Maye showed some good stuff. He showed some bad stuff. It's limited action. I still am very confused as to leaving timeouts on the board when you're going to bring Drake Maye in. If that was Brissett in the game, totally understand, like, dude, let's just get out of here. We cannot afford any other injuries. We don't need less confidence going to San Francisco and Miami. Get out of here. Get out of Dodge. But if you're going to bring Drake Maye in the game and those are valuable reps. Those become, that switches from garbage tape to like, this is the most important tape we will watch all week. And like, you could have probably gotten 3-ish plays, maybe more. And those are 3 valuable reps that, to me, I just felt like it doesn't really matter. No, obviously it's not the biggest deal in the world, right? But like Wouldn't it have been nice if you're already down there, call a couple timeouts? Hey, Drake May, this is what the red zone in the NFL looks like in a regular season game versus starters. And you didn't really get that. And I just felt like that's just an opportunity wasted then it makes me think like, I hope this week, and again, you know much better than me, I hope this week, the last 3 to 4 days during that mini bye, you get the Patriots, brass, Mayo, Van Pelt, front office, ownership, everyone sat down and said, what is our exact plan? And let's all get in line and in sync with the games are at this point, he's coming in. If it gets to this point, he's not coming in next one. Like, just reestablish, regroup. It's been 3 weeks, some good, some bad, etc. Now let's regroup. Let's make sure we're all on the same page for the plan, because the last thing you need right now is to kind of either trot him out there too early with no plan or almost wait too long. I still think to myself, he needs to have at least 8 starts this year. I think to feel sufficient about going to next year, knowing we kind of know what we have a little bit. Less than that feels like it's not going to be good. And starting him this week's not going to make sense either.
Part of what not calling the timeouts to me was a signal that we're afraid we're going to get him killed, and he took a couple plays of shots. I think it was just sort of like, we got him some plays, and let's get out here so that he doesn't separate his shoulder, and we don't have to then worry about that part of the equation. But man, it just they're so it's 70-30 practice reps, which I think if you talk to a lot of backup quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks, like that's uncommon. Normally, the starter gets 90-95% of the reps. The rationale, I think Albert Breer was explaining it the other day, was that, well, Brissett's been with Van Pelt, so he knows the offense. So there are certain things that he knows that it's like, well, he doesn't really need to rep this. So when that's the case, he taps out, Drake comes in, you're getting Drake some more valuable reps in practice that he normally would get in a situation where, other backups, again, are just twiddling their thumbs behind the scenes and just trying to get the mental reps, but not getting the physical reps. So interesting. But yeah, I can't imagine that he starts this week. And now I wonder, Miami was the game I had circled for week 5. And now I wonder if that even makes any sense. Let's take a quick little break here. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. For instance, somebody, Mike Giardi maybe, said more than a half an interception for CJ Stroud. Bing, bing, bing. Got it. Might have said more on over 48.5 yards for Aubrey, the kicker for the Cowboys. Bingo. That's the kind of stuff you do. Then you got money in your account and you're feeling great. It's pretty easy to do too, by the way. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play 5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. The game I was excited about was the Philadelphia and the Saints game. Both teams, obviously, Philly's been a bit of a roller coaster, and we're interested to see how that whole thing shakes out after the 10-1 start last year. They certainly tanked. And then New Orleans, who's looked like the best team in football through 2 weeks. Well, Philly goes down to New Orleans and survives 15-12. And I thought, Will, watching this game, that looked more like the Philadelphia defense from 2 years ago that got after quarterbacks, made life hell on quarterbacks, but also stout against the run. Kamara had come in. They were running the hell out of the ball. Kamara averaged 3.3 yards per carry. That's generally not going to get it done, and that's in part why they finished with just 12 points.
Yeah, so I'm on most of the same page with you. If I'm a Philly fan, I'm leaving yesterday extremely concerned. Seriously, I'm
interested to hear what you said, because I do have a double-starred issue here for Philadelphia.
I'm not going to hit on the Sirianni thing yet. I think that's a huge issue, and I think that's probably what you have starred, and the fourth down stuff is a disaster. They're a really awesome roster. I think there's been no doubt about that. Devontae Smith, that hit was nasty. I don't know that it was the dirtiest hit I've ever seen. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson says a lot of things sometimes, and
right.
Yesterday he gives up a first down and celebrating because he thought he got a stop, and it's like 5 yards past the line. It's like, dude, just relax for 2 seconds, something. Jordan Davis finally showed up yesterday, the guy that we saw at the beginning of last year, where, as you mentioned, 2 years ago in the beginning of last year, was like this Philly defense hit the hell out of the quarterback, kind of covered up a lot on the back end. Darius Slay is good, not the player he used to be. Some of those young guys and all that stuff. All these, they were good at defense yesterday. Like, I'm not taking anything away. Derek Carr reverted back to, this is what I meant about the preseason, and this is why it's really hard week 1 and week 2, because if you just come out and you guys are more in a rhythm than the other team and you're more ready to go, like, you could steal 1 or 2. And Derek Carr is playing good football. But we know when Derek Carr feels any semblance of pressure, and I mean any semblance, craters. He can't throw the football. It's bad decision after bad decision. It's why he got booed off the Superdome turf, at the end of last year. Philly defense was really good. I still think there's like 2 or 3 levels to them that we haven't seen yet. I still don't get the hiring of Fangio, because I feel like he doesn't play any of these guys in the positions that they're best suited for.
Right.
He's got Nolan Smith rushing at defensive tackle. He's got Bryce Huff standing up, rushing inside, rushing from like a 5 or a 7, as opposed to he's literally a wide 9, hand in the dirt edge player. Like, it's clear as day. All that stuff being said, they played really well yesterday, so I want to give them their defense credit. Jalen Hurts turns the ball over all the time. He doesn't take care of the ball at all, and this is now a trend over, I think, like 20 or so games. This is not a new thing. The first 20 or so starts, if I'm not mistaken, is like he had like 6 turnovers and something like that. In the last, he's like 26. He's the most turnovers in the NFL since the start of last year. Something you would never know about. It usually is always Josh Allen, because the high variance, he runs the football a lot. Hurts fumbling, the interceptions. DeVonta Smith probably out for a week or 2, I would assume. I mean, that was a nasty concussion. We don't know really what about A.J. Brown. Becton's already hurt. Lane Johnson's hurt. It feels like when things around Jalen Hurts get very muddy and he doesn't have Brown and DeVonta playing at their top peak, he forces a lot. He holds the ball a lot. And I'm just worried, if I'm an Eagles fan, going, our schedule is easy. I looked at it this morning and I'm going, they're not going to lose until December. And we're going to have the same conversation of like, they're 11-1, but like nobody thinks they're that good. And that's where like I'm concerned, if I'm an Eagles fan, going, I don't trust the coach. I don't trust our defensive coordinator. I probably don't trust our offensive coordinator. I'm not sure I trust our quarterback. But hey, our roster's awesome. We'll probably
but other than that, everything's
great.
Other
than that, Mrs. Lincoln has a show. But seriously, like it's crazy if you really just think about it. Like, I could make a serious argument that they will not lose until potentially that Ravens game, December 1st. And I still am not sure anything they do in the next 8 weeks is going to change my opinion on them, because I don't know, them playing, I guess they have the Dallas game, but other than that, it's like Giants, Washington, New England. Yep. Like it's not New England, but it's not a hard schedule. My point just being, Saquon was awesome yesterday. I thought he won them the football game.
Yep.
I thought Jordan Davis and Saquon together, the whole thing, and the Saints looked exactly like what we all kind of thought they were. Really solid defense, veteran group who's going to bend, not break. And then offensively, what they were. I don't know. The Sirianni thing to me is so concerning that it so outshines a really good. They went into an undefeated team on the road, coming off a bad loss, and got a win. Like, good for the Eagles. But I also look at the flip side and like, there's no way they should have won that game, and it should have been over already.
Yeah, did you even hear him at the post game? They played the clip on Football Night in America, and it's like,
I didn't hear it. No.
No, talking about like, we have to have each other's backs, and like sometimes you're not going to play that great, but the guy next to you or the guy who's around you, they play well, that can pick you up. Offense doesn't play well, defense plays, that sort of thing. And he said sometimes your coach doesn't make the right decisions. Hello, 2 fourth down attempts, passing up points on one of them, and then a 60-yard field goal attempt, which, oh, by the way, they miss, and then New Orleans goes down and takes the lead, and then it's up to Saquon to bail you out at the end of the game and win the game. So that's 3. And look, you can hit me with the analytics all you want, but like, your team is struggling to score points. Take some points. Sometimes it's just good to, hey, we escaped. We got 3 points. It's
Game
nice.
would have been over already.
Yep. Didn't do it. And he has been a mess all season long. And that specter of Bill Belichick or whomever else is looming with Howie Roseman, the general manager, and ownership there, that's not going away, even after, as you mentioned, a nice win. Like, they should be feeling pretty good about going into a place that it's very difficult to play. They were incredibly loud yesterday. New Orleans is playing great football coming in. And instead it's like, but boy, the quarterback, and but boy, the coach, and like, boy, the way the coaches are coaching some of this stuff doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's it should be a better day for them in Philadelphia, but they're going to
13,
get a lot of crap. Yeah.
13, 12. I love when people go for it on fourth down. I love being aggressive as a coach and all this stuff. But like, I don't know, last year when Dan Campbell got a ton of heat for the NFC title game, but even then, like their kicker was untrustworthy. It kind of made sense. You're on the road in an NFC title game. You feel like this is your shot. You're a year early. The whole thing, like you can really make, I don't know, not make. It felt like he felt more yesterday in the last 2 weeks, more Brandon Staley-ish than a Campbell or Harbaugh when he goes for it, when he's like, hey, I'm on the road. I'm going for 2 to win the game. I don't want to, overtime's not going to cut it. I can't sacrifice my guys. Like there's no reasoning. It's just like, F it. I don't know. We'll probably get it. We'll run the football. You have this big offensive line. Run the ball on one of these. Right. Like, it just there's no. It's just like, okay. Well, we'll do this today. Well, tomorrow we'll do this. And it's like, what are you doing?
And also, one of their huge advantages, right, was the tush push and not having Kelsey, which is one of the. We talked about this, I think, in the preview show. Like one of the stories that wasn't being talked about enough. What do they do in fourth and short? They didn't run the tush. They tried to get cute with it. Like they wouldn't have got cute with it last year. They would have said, what was it, 24 of 26 or 23 of 25 last year? Like, we're going to do this because you can't stop it. And we hit 90-something percent success rate versus trying to get cute in that instance. Like, again, just speaks to the difference in the team and how it's built now and the level of confidence they had. That was as unstoppable a play as it was in the National Football League last year. No matter what you want to say, and it's only 1 yard, 2 yards, 3 yards, whatever. Like to have that in your back pocket and in short yardage situations is awesome. And they feel like they don't have it already. And that would be concerning.
You can tell they know they don't have it too. That's the scary part.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to, I think probably the biggest surprise of the day, not because of who won, but how decisively they won. And that's the Vikings hosting the Texans and absolutely kicking the living crap out of them, 34-7. And it was much like the Patriots game we talk about, was it as close? No, that like it could have been a lot worse than that. The job, I feels like this is the third week in a row I've said it, the job that Kevin O'Connell, who obviously the head coach, but also calling the plays, and Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator, are doing right now is better than anybody in the league. That 1-2 punch there, absolutely a pantsing of Flores to Bobby Slowick and that Texans offense led by CJ Stroud, turned him over twice, sacked him 3 times, blitzed him 43% of the time out of 44% pressure rate. Like he never was comfortable. For someone who is so poised and so cool, not comfortable at all in this game. Vikings are just playing tremendous football. And then what O'Connell's done with Sam Darnold, again, TJ Hawkinson's not playing. He's still out. Jordan Addison's missing again this week, and they still scored 34. And Justin Jefferson was dealing with a quad injury and then hurt his finger. And to put up 34 points and have Sam throw 4 touchdowns, if we'd stop the season here, Sam's the MVP. O'Connell's coach of the year. The assistant of the year is Flores. Just give them all the flowers because at this point at 3-0, they deserve every single one of them.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, I think probably unreasonably high on the Vikings and said I feel like their ceiling was a lot higher than.
Yeah. Yeah. You liked them better than I did.
Yeah. I thought they were they're somewhere between a 7 and a 9 win team. I still think ultimately we land in that 8-ish win range. Maybe they sneak in as the 7 seed. I still think that I don't think my view on them's changed per se. I think there's going to be a lot of questions about quarterback in terms of next year kind of quarterback that we'll get to if Sam continues to play this way. Mm-hmm. He's the leader for MVP right now in the league, through 3 weeks. And I actually don't know it's particularly close. Sam's always been talented, no question about it. He's always had moments. I think the difference when you look at the quarterbacks of the Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield level bust, quote unquote, or the Tannehills, et cetera, that have been high top 10 picks that have kind of gone other places and had success is there was always moments or 4 to 6 week stretches. They looked awesome. And it was kind of cleaning up talent around them, coaching staff. There was always a lot of injuries. There's always different things. Whereas you look at a Carolina with Bryce Young or Zach Wilson with the Jets or Trey Lance, et cetera, there was never really it's felt like, at least with Bryce, obviously it's only 18 starts, or Zach, there's other, like, the moments were far and few between. They were not as bad a situation, whatever. There's always like, it didn't feel the same. With Sam, it's felt like, Baker went to LA with McVay for a short period and kind of felt like he cleaned a lot of stuff up. Sam went to, out to San Francisco with Kyle for a year, and I feel like he's cleaned up a lot of mechanics. He's keeping his eyes downfield again, something he got away from at the end of his time with the Jets, and obviously in Carolina, even though he had some nice moments there. I think he's playing really good football. Like, just point blank, playing really good football. He knows like Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson will make me right. Like, I don't have to do too much. And if I just do what I'm told, and I'm like, and I can just use my brain a little bit. Like, he had one play yesterday right before he, had the touchdown that he almost Will Levis won and whatever. And you could tell it was like, oh man, 2 or 3 years ago, it's bad. But he knew, like, I got to throw it here. And he got, did just enough to correct an error. So Minnesota defensively has been awesome. That crowd yesterday was fantastic. Mm-hmm. I think they're a team that, am I going to pick Green Bay this week? I don't know that I'm going to pick Green Bay this week. I don't know, like, warmer weather in Lambeau. Like, why can't the Vikings go in there and start 4-0? Like, the Vikings fans are probably thinking, can I win one of these next two? Can I get one from the Jets or one from Green Bay? You'd obviously like the Green Bay game more for rivalry reasons, conference, division, etc. Keep stacking wins. And I'm curious what week we'll have the conversation if Sam plays even 80% of what he's playing, what the conversation is next year at quarterback for them. Because at some point it's going to come up, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic and the whole, like, they got to trade JJ McCarthy, but, like, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying Sam's 27 years old, and if he ends up having the kind of year you think, and he turns into your Geno Smith reclamation, et cetera, like, it's going to be hard to kind of move on from him for nothing. So it's just an interesting conversation. It'll be something for down the line. On the Houston side of things, my concern meter is at like a 3 out of 10, but there's a little bit of concern. I don't feel like there's been a couple of games now, and look, CJ Stroud's allowed to struggle. Like, I'm not saying he's not.
Right.
I will say they didn't beat a lot of really good teams. They've not played or even really beaten a lot of good teams in his, whatever, 19 starts now, I guess, or 18 starts. This looked a lot like the Jets and the Ravens games of last year, where, like, the whole team looked overmatched. It was mental errors. It was receivers not on their game. Stroud not great, getting hit a lot. Laramie Tunsil's got 10 penalties in 3 games. Stroud's amazing. And I'm not saying he's not a top 5 guy for sure and all that stuff.
Why do you hate CJ Stroud?
I hate CJ Stroud so much. No, I just look, yesterday he wasn't good, and I just, the games, and he's gotten sacked a lot like that. If Stroud, I'm looking at the numbers here. If he gets sacked 4 times or more, they're 2-5, 2-6. Like, the key is to hit him and get him on the ground 4+ times, and you'll probably beat Houston. I look at Houston as, like, I think they're going to be really good. I think they're going to probably walk away with this division quite easily. Tennessee looks horrible, which is what me and you both thought, especially from a quarterback perspective. We'll see Jacksonville tonight, but Trevor Lawrence doesn't want to start since November, and Indy is. We'll get to Anthony Richardson. To me, it's like they're just the team that I think of the 4 division leaders at the moment. They're the team I think I've been the least impressed with of the 4. Pittsburgh offensively is a mess, whatever. But my point just being, it's not about Stroud or anything like that. Yesterday was like, that was, is it one game or is it a trend?
Well, let me give you this. And I think it started in the postseason last year.
The Baltimore game.
Bobby Slowick, who is everybody's favorite, I think he had 5 interviews for head coaching jobs.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah. And, like, again, if they have a good year and they're a playoff team, Bobby Slowick is going to get a head coaching job this year if he wants one, unless he pulls a Ben Johnson.
Little Canales-ish.
Yes. He is not – I don't think he's done a very good job of acquitting himself, and I think he's put his quarterback at times in difficult situations. Yeah. Look, part of that is they're also, I think, having some offensive line problems and not having any kind of running game yesterday at all contributed to that. Also not having Mixon, who's obviously been off to a good start. Not sure when he's going to come back in terms of that injury. The tackle was a little bit dirty that knocked him out. But I've got him on my watch list. Bobby Slowick, I didn't like how the last season ended, and you got all your interviews, and now I don't like the way your offense looks, even though, again, they put up some big numbers in the first couple of weeks, and Stroud's counting numbers were fantastic the first couple of weeks. But as you mentioned, I think last week put a couple in harm's way and should have been picked and wasn't. And then this game, he does get picked off a couple times, the first two that he's thrown this season. So it's just something for me that I filed away, and I will continue to watch to see if Slowick is the actual genius.
It's not a concern level that's bad or anything like that.
No, it just
the Eagles won I'm much higher on just because I think they're not unless they're going to fire Sirianni like that. I don't know when that's getting fixed. It's not the Texans again. They're a good team, and I think they're going to cakewalk to this division. I'm not in no way, but their expectations are now with the quarterback on a rookie contract that everyone told me is a top 5 guy no matter what, and this amazing roster and D'Amico's most of those things are probably true. I'm just saying their expectations, similar to Philly, these other teams, the way we talk about them is because their expectation is to go win a title and to take the next step. And I don't know that I've been overly impressed with Houston through it's 3 weeks. Yep. I'm just not wow, this is so much better than last year.
The next step. Yep.
All this talent they've infused. It's all right, they kind of got by the Colts and they beat up Caleb a little bit. And then it's they they go on the road and and it didn't look great. So I don't know. That's just a little take back from Houston.
It's always a lot different when you are
the hunted, not the hunter.
Yes. I mean, it is now that game matters. Before last year, yes, I know every week is hard to win in the league. Everybody tells you that, and it's fair because you see the results every week and you say, how'd that team win? How did Denver beat Tampa in Tampa yesterday the way they were playing? Well, they did. It's just that's what this league is all about. But that game now is a game that teams star and they circle and they say, okay, they think they're everybody thinks they're the cat's meow. Let's go show them that we're pretty good too. Miami was one of those teams. And I tell you what, and look, injury's been a big part of this, but I thought Miami was going to get off to their usual fast start. Well, they got stomped in Seattle yesterday, 24-3. They're now 1-2 on the year. We know about the Tua injury. We know he's not eligible to come back because of the way their schedules plays out until week 8 because they have a bye in there. So you're not seeing him for a while. He's on IR. Skylar Thompson ends up getting his ribs hurt or chest, whatever they're calling it. He has to leave the game. And they have to go to your old buddy, Tim Boyle, who was just signed 3 days ago. And obviously that went as you would expect. Limited dealings with the playbook, limited dealings with the personnel, probably got very few reps in there. And it was a disaster. They put up 3 points in that game. But it's hard for me not to look at them and say, they're in trouble. You got multiple weeks at least without Tua. And that's assuming he comes back, which is the word on the street that he wants to come back. And okay, that's as you and I discussed, that's his choice. I'm not going to litigate that. But you're 1 for 12 on third downs. You're averaging just a little over 3 yards per carry with all that speed, all that you've invested in there. You decided that you wanted your offensive line to basically stay the same. Aaron Brewer is the one sort of change for Connor Williams. Williams is in Seattle. They bring in Brewer to play center. Their offensive line's not playing very well. They haven't looked good at any point this season. They got curb stomped by Buffalo, and it was going that way before Tua got the concussion. In week 1, it took Tyreek Hill somehow managing to stay in bounds on that 80-yard touchdown pass where, again, if you go back and look at it, it was like the Matrix, the way he was running. I don't know how he kept his feet in bounds and was able to go. So it could easily be 0-3. They're 1-2, and what kind of answers? Tyler Huntley's probably going to be the guy who starts this week if Thompson can't go. I know he was a Pro Bowl quarterback with 2 touchdown passes a few years ago. That's just I don't know, man. If I'm a Miami fan, I had them making the playoffs. Obviously with the injuries, you can't project any of that stuff. Looking a little dicey for them right now. They might be in a serious inflection point already here in September.
Everyone told me I was crazy about the Mac Jones thing. If Mac Jones was his team starting quarterback over the next 3 weeks, you'd probably pick them to win 2, if not 3 of those games. I'm just being honest.
Yep,
you would. They have not looked good at any point this year. As you mentioned, they had a really nice late third, early fourth quarter against Jacksonville. For sure. That's, I guess, can't take that away. Other than that, the defense, I guess.
We're talking about 1.5 out of 12 quarters. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. So, and against a Jacksonville team that's not that great.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with Miami because I felt like going into the year, I think I picked them, if I'm not mistaken, I picked them to win 9 games and just narrowly missed the playoffs. And that was with Tua. I just feel like this roster is kind of, it's hard to figure, like, they're not a cold weather team and stuff. And I felt like they lost stuff defensively. I don't feel like they've been horrible on defense this year, but they haven't been like special either. They're kind of like a middling defense, probably. Maybe are they like the 18th best defense in the league or 16th best, which is fine. And if their offense was performing at peak levels with Tua and Tyreek and Waddle and A-Chain and all that stuff, like 16th best defense is more than fine enough to get you in the playoffs and take care of business and get better as the season goes on with Phillips and these guys getting healthy. Offensively, the problem is that this offense is so reliant on those big 2 receivers and obviously the run game, and the offensive line's a mess, as you mentioned. Even if quarterback was average level quarterback play, they're just in a really bad spot in this sense to me. And it's not that the season's not over. They're 1-2. It's okay. But it's, if they do not take at least 2 of the next 3 to me, then the season pretty much will in turn be over. Because part of this whole thing with the Dolphins, and you referenced it earlier, was them getting off to a fast start, knowing what's coming at the end of the season.
Yep.
The next 3 weeks, hosting Tennessee, I think if you go out there, like no matter the quarterback play, you think you have a chance against Tennessee at home. For sure, I think that's a winnable game, nighttime in Miami, the whole 9 yards. They go up to New England. That's a 50-50 game, I think, even with a backup quarterback, just because I think they're more talented than New England. They've played New England really well. Hey, could you steal at least 1, if not 2 of those? Because then they get Indy on the road, which looks not quite as hard of a game, I guess, as we maybe thought. And then it's Arizona, Buffalo, Rams, Raiders, and Patriots. Maybe get right a little bit there. And then Green Bay, Jets, Houston, Niners, Browns, Dolphins.
Yeah.
It gets tough. So you can't really start 2-5 and expect to dig yourself out with that schedule at the end. It's can you get to 3-4, 3-3, and then hope Tua comes back and hope you keep him healthy. And it's kind of a lot of hoping. I want to give Seattle credit. I think Geno's playing really awesome ball. Again, the 2 turnovers yesterday, and only had the 1 touchdown. But so the numbers don't look special. I think he's completing 78% of his passes or something crazy. Very much looks like the Geno of 2 years ago, which is what me and you talked about. You were very high on Seattle. Said, hey, this defense is going to fly around. They're going to be good. They've got playmakers. And if Geno's Geno of 2022, I believe, completes a ton of passes, like they could win 9-10 games, get in the playoffs. They're 3-0. The Rams, really gutsy win, but they're really beat up. I mean, I don't know how they even won that game yesterday. And San Francisco's beat up and 1-2. Arizona's exactly what I thought they were going to be. Humble brag there. Oh, wow, they're exciting on offense, but Kyler still makes horrible decisions with the football, and they're not really good on defense. It's weird. This division's wide open for them. It's worked. They've had a perfect snowball of the first-year head coach. They're good enough quarterback play, talent around them, home field advantage, fast start. Like, if I'm Seattle, I'm like, man, can we just stack wins? Everyone else beat up. Let's just stack wins. So if I'm a Seahawks fan, I'm really happy this morning. Comfortable win yesterday. I feel like all with Seattle's been kind of comfortable so far. We're kind of waiting for them to get really challenged. And then if I'm a Miami fan, I'm like, it's the biggest game of the season, and it will be the biggest game of the season. They have got to win on Monday night, Monday night. They're the Monday night game, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
They don't win on Monday. I think you're starting to go.
Monday.
You're starting to go.
Oh, not our year.
Not our year. I feel bad because you can't predict injuries and all this different stuff. But similar to the Jets last year, and everyone said the same thing about the Jets, so I think it's only fair to say the same thing. You knew your quarterback. You had zero insurance policy for him. And Tua is a guy who, again, 2 years ago and 3 years ago and 4 years ago and in college, injuries have been a thing. And it was amazing he played all 17 last year. But I'm just saying, like, you have to know sometimes guys that were always hurt get hurt again. And the Jets last year were like, well, if Rodgers gets hurt, we're effed. And they operated that way, and they were effed. And Miami kind of operated, if Tua gets hurt, well, and he's now hurt, and you've now done really nothing. So I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm just being honest that, like, the Jets got a lot of crap last year about this, and teams get a lot of crap when they don't have, like, Green Bay's very lucky Malik Willis has played the way he has, because otherwise, again, what's your insurance plan? And I don't know. I'm very high on the way Seattle started the season, and Miami is must-win territory on Monday night.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Speaking of must win, the 49ers will find themselves kind of probably feeling that way next weekend when they host the Patriots, a home game, because they're now 1-2 after losing to the previously 0-2 Rams, 27-24. Rams score on their last 3 possessions of the game. And my first takeaway from this is on the San Francisco side. It turns out that you need your best players to win games. No McCaffrey, no Debo, no Kittle on offense. Ayuk is not even he's out there, but it ain't him. He was proof, by the way, again, that in order to be good at football, one must practice football. And he is still kicking off the rust of having 0 training camp and being moody the entire summer. So that was huge to me. They blew a 14-0 lead. They blew the 10-point lead late. Got out coached. Special teams, the fake punt, like kind of stuff that generally doesn't happen to San Francisco. And I understand the level of desperation that the Rams played with, but the Rams are also beat up, as we've talked about ad nauseum. Their offensive line is a disaster right now. And I have to give McVay and his staff a crap ton of credit for for cobbling together a plan, having to coach around all those injuries, and then finding a way late in the game to make some calls to get them back in the game and then eventually to win the game. It was a hell of a showing by them, because honestly, I counted them out. I thought they were going to start off 0-3, and this is much like as we were talking with Miami. That would be even worse. You start 0-3, like just not your year. Guys, are just too many guys are hurt. And maybe that's going to still be the case because we don't know when Kupp's going to be back. We don't know when Nakua is going to be back. We don't know how the offensive line is going to shake out with all of its injuries. But damn, for at least for one day, well, McVay shows it pretty much every week, but really cobbling together something and getting an impressive win is probably as impressive as anybody.
Yeah, look, I think the Rams, you're looking at, and Schefter was just on, I guess, McAfee suggesting Zach Wilson or Russell Wilson as options for Miami. Russell Wilson, who doesn't throw over the middle of the field, in an offense that prioritizes that would be quite interesting. Shout out to Michael Megan, who's on my on our Jets stuff, who just texted me that, and I thought it was one of the funnier texts I've read in a while. If you're the Rams, you're looking at it and going into yesterday and going, if we can find a way to win, we get Chicago, we got Green Bay at home, the Rams at home. I don't know. You felt like we could win 2 of those 3 minimum. All of a sudden, we're at 3-3. We should start to get healthy, and then they have a stretch there where they have New England, Miami. You know, they have their schedule's tough, but like it starts to look a little brighter. They might not be the division winners that I thought maybe they were going to be, but they could be a playoff team still if they just could steal a couple of these games. And they probably felt hard done. They felt like they probably should have won week 1. Week 2, obviously, as we know, was a disaster. And the gutsiness of Stafford, the gutsiness of McVay, this defense was playing with their hair on fire yesterday. And again, like San Francisco to me has looked like a team that, yes, you need your best players, but some of my concerns for San Francisco going into the year were they always have every couple of years, they have this injury regression. It always happens with them. I don't know. I mean, every team, but like them specifically. And I don't know. I just feel like they've lost 2 games now where like they kind of got beat up pretty bad. I felt like we left week 1 and going, ooh, like, wow, they were really physical against the Jets. And I feel like the Jets kind of misunderstood the assignment, for lack of a better term, week 1. And now I think San Francisco's gone in and like Flores and McVay and O'Connell have just kind of like, I don't know. I feel like they've kind of outcoached Kyle a little bit. I don't know. It just felt, even San Francisco got lucky with a fumble. There was a 4th down call that like didn't look like, it looked like I felt like the Rams kind of got hard done by it. And I'm not down on either San Francisco or the Rams in terms of when they're right, they're really well coached. They're really talented. They're both physical as hell. I just think if you're a Rams fan this morning, you're going, man, like now we can breathe for a second. We go face Caleb this week and the Bears, who are kind of all over the place. All of a sudden we could be 2-2 coming home for the Raiders, and we feel like we have every chance to win that football game. And then we could get healthy after that. Nakua might be off. It could potentially be off IR, Cup, some of the, Avilo, these other guys. If you're San Francisco, you're going, thank God we have New England coming in this week, because otherwise, like, can we really afford to drop to 1-3? And McCaffrey seems like it's maybe probably 6 or 8 weeks, not really 4 weeks. And Debo, we know, usually is longer than shorter in terms of some of the recovery. And Kittle having a hamstring is very concerning to me in terms of, if you listen to the language, I believe Jay Glazer used, Kittle had a cramp that just wouldn't go away. And that to me is usually, that thing was about to snap, and you're lucky you caught it. I would be shocked if any of those guys, I mean, Debo and Kittle wise, are playing this week. Like, you're going to run back the same thing. Ayuk's going to get better. I heard people being like, is he the most overpaid receiver? No, stop. Relax. It's 3 games. But we've seen another year of the holdout guys looking like garbage in the beginning, because guess what? You need to practice, as you said. And I don't know, man. If I'm a San Francisco or the Rams fan, I'm going, damn, Seattle gonna like keep just running away with this thing. Like,
right.
They're already 2 games up in the division, and it's week 4. So, do I think both teams are out of that division race? No, but man, I don't know.
Don't let the hole get any deeper.
You cannot. I think if you're a Rams or a Niners fan this week, you're going, we've got to take care of business in a game that we should win. Then all of a sudden you're 2-2. You feel a heck of a lot that are saying our injuries might be on, where we might be getting close to the other side of injuries, as opposed to 1-3 going, what is going on here?
And one quick note from the Rams side, Matthew Stafford, he's nails. I don't want to hear anybody say that he's not. Like, he's one of the better guys in the league. Just year in and year out, good situation, making it work. Let's get to our last game. Baltimore-Dallas. Baltimore wins 28-25. But had a massive lead going into the fourth quarter and damn near pissed it away, which, coming on the heels of last week when they did piss away a 10-point lead to the Vegas Raiders, who, oh, by the way, got absolutely curb stomped by Carolina Panthers the following week. Like, talk about letting one get away. Talk about being mad at yourself. But for 3 quarters, Will, that was the Ravens team I thought we were going to see. Derrick Henry, the power running game, they got him involved. There's like a big gainer on the screen. Like, don't just make him like, just get him involved in that part of the game. So that was the first time Henry looked like Henry. That was the first time that they played power football, which I think is still what their best bet is. They ran over the left side over and over and over again and just took chunks of yards against the Cowboys. Lamar was the maestro, keeping the ball at times, walked into the end zone for their first touchdown. And then whatever happens in the fourth quarter happens again, and they have to hold on for dear life. It's interesting, like, the number of bodies that they lost. We talked about the offensive line still needing to come together, and there's still parts of that. Again, the right side still remains, although Falele played much better right guard than he had at any point this season, but they still have to figure that out. But defensively, losing some of the pieces that they did, Clowney was really good for them last year. Geno Stone was really good for them last year. Patrick Queen was really good for them last year alongside Roquan Smith. Their defense isn't the same yet. And it's a new coordinator as well. So I think that's going to take time. But I just wonder if, from a personnel standpoint, they just don't have the same juice that they had last year when, look, they were by far and away the best defense in the league. But like, I looked at them and said they should still be a top 8-ish defense this year. And now I'm beginning to wonder if they might not just be like a 16-18 defense. And if that's the case, then the guy that had them in the Super Bowl, that would be me. They're not going to the Super Bowl like that.
You idiot. No.
Yeah, I know. More.
I have a comp for you, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. This Ravens team's the 2004 Lakers. 2004 Lakers.
Was that Nash and...
No, it was Karl Malone, Gary Payton.
Oh, okay,
It was Kobe and Shaq, but I believe Shaq next year gets traded. But Kobe in his prime, very much prime, Lamar-ish. And they bring in these other guys who don't fit the style, really. And I think we talked a little bit about this, and this is not the week to rip Derrick Henry, by the way. He was awesome yesterday.
Awesome.
I'm not at all like, the Ravens won that game and they needed it badly. But I'll throw Justin Tucker in this mix. Like, this roster is a mix, I feel like, and it's a little bit of guys going different ways in a sense. Like, I don't always know that Lamar needs that feature back and needs the feature receivers. I'm concerned about Andrews. I think he ran 4 total routes yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's taken a lot of punishment over the years. a lot of target share, the car accident, which kind of got glossed over. They said he's fine, but he hasn't played like he's fine. So I don't know. Something's just off there. And they need to get that figured out at some point, though, because they go beat Kansas City. Part of that is that 2 tight end set with him and Likely is just so deadly. Henry's a really good player still. He still is a really good back. I think he's probably more like he's probably a top 10 or 12 back, not necessarily the top 1 or 2 back, but doesn't need to be. I just worry a little bit with them that they're caught in between 2 styles, and I don't know that they've quite yet figured out who they are. And I think yesterday was like, oh, everyone's like, this is who the Ravens are. This is Baltimore Ravens football. Like, I mean, yeah, but like they ran the ball like 500 times, and I don't know if that's sustainable every single week, but especially when you're going to want to get Lamar more involved. And it's hard to like, he's the $50 million toy that like, it's hard to like just ignore and be like, hey, we're going to pound Derrick Henry. And it's early in the season. They should do that. They should be kind of keeping the load off Lamar and making sure, hey man, like we're going to run Henry and this is what we're going to do. We're going to try to be a physical football team. But like, is Lamar going 12-15 sustainable every single week? Not saying it's not a good strategy. I'm just saying, is it realistic that that's going to happen every week? I thought they got away from the run game too much in the playoff game early last year and at times against the Chiefs. So again, I'm more curious for the thinking of the Ravens. How do they establish an identity and stick to it? I think they need to be able to run the football, obviously. I'm not saying, again, they shouldn't. I'm not talking on both sides of my mouth here. I'm just saying that at the same time, I feel like it's just not realistic to me that you're going to give Derrick Henry 25 carries and Lamar 15 pass attempts every week. I don't think that it's not going to happen. So it's figuring out how do we balance 2 of them out. But that said, they needed this one yesterday badly. They got it. I'm concerned about Justin Tucker.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's missing a lot of kicks, and these are kicks inside, warm weather, no wind. Like this is not missing. Kickers are like relievers, man, and sometimes when it goes, it goes. Mike Vanderjagt was the most accurate kicker in NFL history for a long time, and it went, and all of a sudden it was like, oh man, that's a huge part of their game. Like that is no doubt about it. 60 and in was like guaranteed 3 points. That's why it was so hard to play the Ravens. It was like they have an MVP quarterback, an amazing defense that'll beat the shit out of you, and their kicker can make it from 75 yards away and every single time. I mean, he won a game in Detroit on a 66-yarder. Like, so I'm just a little concerned about that. So I guess in totality with the Ravens, like you feel good about them knowing they finally got a game where it was like they were extremely physical. They got off the mat. They almost blew it again yesterday, and they have done it 2 games in a row. So that would be concerning. My thing with the Cowboys is this. I think me and you were both not super high on them. We both said there's a lot of noise, a lot of things going on. They haven't looked really good at all. Even the Browns game, like that was more. We saw yesterday with the Giants. Like the Browns,
more the Browns. The Browns. Yeah, Deshaun Watson looks like he should be off the pasture.
Deshaun Watson at a home game is like Zach Wilson playing in New England. I mean, it's ugly. They took away CeeDee Lamb yesterday, the Ravens, and said somebody else beat us. And like,
nobody else.
You're playing the Cowboys, like you'll take giving up Keontae Turpin plays and Jake Ferguson getting 11 targets. Like that's a W. So I'd be Philly and Dallas. To me, I'd be more concerned about if they played in a different division, especially Dallas. I mean, especially Philly. I apologize because of the schedule. Dallas, they're 0-2 at home. They get the Giants in a short week, who finally have looked. Again, it's the Browns. We'll see. Have finally looked a little bit like a competent, somewhat team. I don't know if that'll continue. But if they go down in New York and lose to a team they always own, now it's and this is the Cowboys' schedule coming up. Sunday Night Football. They have Thursday Night Football. Of course, the Cowboys are on prime time all of the next 5 weeks. They're at Pittsburgh, home Lions, at San Fran, at Atlanta, home Philly, home Houston. I mean, this schedule is no joke. And I just wonder, and again, I'm not trying to be, hyperbolic here, but this is a team with a lot of pressure, and Mike McCarthy is a guy that, even if it's not really his fault, someone's gonna. If they are 2-6 or 2-5, and Jerry gets impatient, like it's the one job I feel like we're gonna see that and Doug Peterson down in Jacksonville. They're the 2 ones where you're like, dude, this could get ugly kind of quick. Different circumstance. I don't know. I'm worried about Dallas. I mean, players are yapping too.
Yeah,
It's ugly.
You had CD and Dak yelling at each other. Parsons and Lawrence calling out, I think everybody, not just the defense. And I think this goes back to when we talked about them in the preseason. There's a talent erosion that's happened there. And their all in wasn't all in. They didn't do anything to replace it. It's like you had Jerry Jones talking about how they couldn't afford Derrick Henry. No, they could have afforded Derrick Henry. They chose not to. They chose not to spend. So they're reap what they sow right now. That's a middling football team at best at this point.
Very top heavy. Not that they were ever as good as those late '90s Cowboys team or the mid '90s Cowboys teams, but in the late '90s, it started to be like they're the Cowboys, and on the schedule, you look at it and you think this might be a loss, and they still had some of those guys, but like the pieces around them started to. And again, I know it's very different. I'm just trying to say like they're an average 12-win-a-year team that kind of has the roster of like an 8-win team with some stars, and you hope those stars could take you to 10, 11 wins in the playoffs. And it just worries me that like the schedule mixed with a lame duck coach, mixed with most of these guys having just gotten paid and not really practiced, and the media, and it's one of those whirlwinds that it's troublesome. Like I'm not trying to overreact here. They might go out and beat the Giants 40-0 again and beat Pittsburgh, who I think's probably not anywhere near as good as their record. And they'll be 3-2, and I'll have pie on my face. But right now,
you can only talk about what you see, and what we've seen so far, it ain't been good.
Yeah, they beat a bad Browns team, and they got throttled at home by New Orleans and Baltimore. Not great.
Not great. You know what is great? Well, it's not great for me, but it was great for you as I saw you tweeting. What is that? What we still call it? Tweeting?
Xing.
Yes, Xing about what a weekend it was for the New York teams. You got the Yankees; they're headed to the postseason. Mets, big series. Looks like they're headed to the postseason, and that means you're going to want tickets. And where do you get tickets? GameTime.co. Incredible place. New feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I know that that's what you're going to be doing because I'm going to have to hear about, I can't record the pod today because I'm going to the Yankee playoff game. And I'll be like, my baseball season for my team was over actually, technically, they're still alive. Or maybe it finally ended, but
Alex Cora should have thrown at Aaron Judge, and maybe their season would still be alive.
Yeah, well, Garrett Cole throwing at Rafael Devers, you big wuss, because he owns you. But I know you're going to be using it, and that pisses me off. But I'm happy for you because I know it's a good site and you'll get good deals. You can get good deals as well. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. It's also time for overreactions to end the pod today. I'll give you two. Justin Fields, Steelers quarterback of the future? Probably, I'm going to say this as a passer against, it's an okay Chargers team. Defensively, okay. They're old. Bosa goes out again, which is, write that out every other week. But processing better. They had a couple throws that I didn't really see him make in Chicago. And I'm just wondering if the job that Arthur Smith has done there with him, and maybe he's never going to be what we thought he was going to be as a passer. He's a top 10 pick. But maybe now he settles into that, 15th, 16th best quarterback in the league, and as a passer, and then what he can do with his legs gives you that extra element. Just as you said, I don't think Pittsburgh is very good. Defensively they are. I don't think they're very good offensively, and I don't think they're as good as their record says they are, currently undefeated. But something to monitor that this guy's playing, at least for this small sample size. And he's gotten better every week, which is kind of what I like. And I would say Russell Wilson, whether he's getting traded or whatever, feels as though Russell Wilson is not getting a crack at that job anytime soon.
No, he is not. I'll give you two overreactions. One, Malik Neighbors will be the most productive receiver in the NFC East in 2024. He's been special. The Giants needed that win badly yesterday. After that kickoff, and touchdown immediately. I had Giants buddies texting me, can we hire Bill Belichick? Can we trade for Mike Vrabel? Can we all these different things? So I'm going to go Malik Neighbors will finish as the most productive receiver in the NFC East. Probably has a chance to beat Odell's first couple of years. I mean, he has been special. My second one is Travis Kelce close to the end here.
You wanted to say cooked.
I wanted to say but no, we know that he's going to make plays, and there'll be plays throughout the year and in the playoffs. I'm sure he'll come up with the big plays in the biggest stage. And we know he is. He looked mentally just shot yesterday. There becomes a point where there's too much off the field. And again, I don't mean to be this, the yelling from the yawn, the lawn guy and whatever, but all the podcasts and the traveling with Taylor Swift and the Taylor Swift whole 9 yards, and they've won it a bunch of times, and it starts to add up. And he's 34, going to be 35, and it's like it's a lot, and it's a lot to get up for all these different games. And I'm not blaming him. Like, he's going to walk in the Hall of Fame as one of the best tight ends ever, and won a bunch of titles and hundreds of millions, like all of it. I totally get it, but it's not great right now. And Mahomes hasn't looked awesome. They've gotten bailed out by some calls. The no pass interference yesterday, I mean, it's just like hysterical. But all that said, they're 3-0, and again, he'll have moments this year. It feels like it's either this year or next year, maybe, but it feels like it's. I'd like to see Travis Kelce walk out, still one of the best players in his position, and I'm not advocating for him to retire. I'm just telling you, like, it feels like sooner rather than later we're going to see the actual decline. Last year, it felt like we were seeing it, and he snapped out of it, so maybe we'll see it again like that. But this year, it feels like it's like he's just kind of out there doing cardio. We'll see if that changes a little bit, as the season goes on.
I'll give you one last overreaction before we say goodbye. I talked about Bobby Slowick being on your suspect, and I'm watching you. Shane Waldron, who's the offensive coordinator for the Bears. I actually thought Caleb did some nice things yesterday. I thought he did some nice things against the Texans, even though he was under siege that whole game. I don't know what he's calling. I saw Eberflus with a quote today that he and Shane watched something that they did yesterday and was like, we got to be better than that. We can't do that. I just would say through 3 weeks, I have been left wondering what his plan is. Like, they take shots down the field. It's always outside the numbers. They're not pushing the ball down the middle of the field. Pass protection has been brutal. Like, they're getting him killed, which again would be another reason why, hello, Patriots, Drake Maye, you might want to keep him over here for a little while. But so Shane Waldron, I'm watching, and I'm already sensing some disturbances between him and Eberflus. So I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Antonio Pierce, we are not ruling out a change of
quarterback. We're not ruling out a change of quarterback. And guys made business decisions yesterday.
Yeah, that means Devontae Adams, pack your bags for New York, and Gardner Minshew.
And Jack Jones, who everybody was raving about once he got over there, absolutely olayed a play where he just wanted nothing to do with physical contact. And I would say, I told you so. We didn't like that hire. It paid some dividends for them because they just got rid of Josh McDaniels, and it was just like anybody but him. But it seems like that train is already going off the tracks in Vegas, despite the ridiculous win over Baltimore 2 weekends ago. So,
Belichick, Pittsburgh is the best quarterback situation in the NFL. Bill, spare me, buddy.
All right, Bill.
Spare me.
Good talk. All right, that's gonna. He's probably because he wanted. Probably because what he probably told ownership was, "We'll go get Justin Fields this offseason before he got fired." And now Justin Fields is doing pretty well for Pittsburgh. And it's just, I told you.
I told you he was awesome.
I told you. All right, that's gonna wrap it up. A reminder to like, subscribe, listen, tell your friends, give reviews, tell us how wonderful we are, so we can continue to push this brand out there. We will be back again at the end of the week, getting you ready for Week 4 slate. He is Will Parkinson. I am Mike Giardi. See you.